our last challenge is Elizabeth Burr, and she is going to ask us, what can the digital humanities offer small linguistic and cultural communities? A great question.
I have just a question.
Yes, of course.
We have 5 minutes of a break afterwards, so that people can go to
yes, let's do that. Yeah, let's. I think if there are requests to do so.
Bueno. Hello. So I'm Elisabeth Burr from Leipzig University, and I want to ask the question, what can the digital humanities offer small linguistic and cultural communities? You could also call them minority languages and minority cultures. I give you some historical background. At the beginning, all our Romance languages were exclusively spoken languages, and there were very many of them. Once the speakers of these languages became conscious that what they speak is not Latin but a specific vernacular, those who knew how to write started to write glossaries in their own vernacular, with the first text being written in different vernaculars, different scripta came into being, and also the first grammars were grammars of a certain vernacular. The further development of many of these vernaculars was, however, blocked by the arrival of a very powerful technology, the printing press. Over time, only those vernaculars which were printed acquired a certain status and developed further, while the others were pushed to the periphery, became dialects, or were even declared to be dangerous patois, which needed to be destroyed. In order to be printed, it was helpful at first if manuscripts of importance were already available, but later it became incisive whether people wrote texts in a certain vernacular and had the money or the power to get them printed. When internet and above all the World Wide Web arrived, it seemed at first that these new technologies would strengthen the development towards fewer and fewer languages, if not lead to the adoption of English only. There were, after all, only English web pages, and English was the only language which could actually be written. Umlauts, accents, ñ, cd, you name it, had to be transcribed, and Greek texts were transformed into number codes. However, a short while after the first non-English speaking countries had been connected to the web, it became clear that something quite different was happening. The fact that more and more languages appeared on the web relativized the status of English. The web became more and more multilingual, more and more scripts appeared, dialects, minority languages, and hybrid languages could be found, and so could languages or varieties which had never been written before. You can find all these sources still on the web, and I leave my presentation with you afterwards. When we look at this development, we can discern some of the factors which generally determine the fate of languages and cultures. The consciousness of being diverse, the wish to manifest this diversity by writing in your own language and in your own script, the value of already existing resources and or of the creation of new resources, the importance of having access to the type of technology which allows you to make available these resources, and last but not least, the power of communities when it comes to the further development of a certain technology. Now, I see, against this background, I see 3 challenges to the digital humanities. The first challenge is digital humanities, language resources, and language technologies. Today, the survival of or extinction of languages and the participation or exclusion of communities and their cultures depends very much on being part of the digital space. In this space, languages can only be used to the full if language technologies are available for them and are being developed further rapidly. The digital humanities can contribute enormously to the development of language technologies for all sorts of languages if they become conscious that the resources they create are, for example, not just digital editions, but are at the same time language resources and have to be treated accordingly. By taking on such a perspective and communicating it to small or other linguistic and cultural communities, they can consciously foster the inclusion, empowerment of small linguistic and cultural communities. The next, okay, this is MetaNet, where you find the white paper series. You see all the under-resourced European languages. The only real resourced language is English anyway. So it's not just about small linguistic cultures, but also about all our languages. The next challenge I see is to look at digital humanities as an epistemology and a methodology. If the digital humanities are conceived not as being technology-driven, but as a new epistemology and methodology, which crosses disciplinary boundaries and aims at a holistic view of human artifacts of all kinds, they have the potentiality to empower small linguistic and cultural communities not only to value and reflect critically their own history and culture, but also to communicate the knowledge they thus create to the global community in an informed way. The primary question then is, after all, not whether a small linguistic and cultural community possesses or knows how to use a certain technological tool and to apply a certain computational method. Instead, the question is how the community itself conceptualizes its own artifacts, their interrelationships and the contexts in which they play a role, and how such a conception can be made accessible and further analyzable in the digital space and compared to the conceptions others might have made available before. And the last challenge, if the digital humanities are seen to be intrinsically project-oriented and collaborative, and if this nature is taken seriously, then they have the potential to foster a consciousness which allows small linguistic and cultural communities to see that they can create the digital resources and make them available themselves by involving the whole community on different levels, instead of waiting till others create such resources for them and impose their conceptions. Involving the community in the process of the creation of digital resources and the production of knowledge to be made accessible in the digital space will most probably have effects on education and skill formation and might even have economic implications, not least because once language resources are available language technologies can be developed and integrated into ICTs. This in turn will allow communities to use their languages over the internet and through digital devices, thus keeping them alive and developing them further. And I think this morning we have seen a wonderful project which is just doing this, and this is Petrolo Digital. So thank you very much for your attention.
Great. Okay, so questions and comments. It's a really fascinating topic, and one that we need to, we really do need to make progress with.
So what do you think about these three challenges? Or let's take one and then the other, I don't know.
You're right, Jimena.
Yeah. I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
We have been talking about this these days. I cannot agree more with everything that you have said. I think that it is really, truly important. Specifically talking about minority languages in Latin America, for example, I think that it is really important because there have been lots of research, mostly during the late 19th and the 21st century, about some Amerindian languages that don't have written records or too many written records. So that hasn't circulated in print editions, but they will circulate in digital editions or in digital resources. And that is really truly important because they will like skip a stage.
A stage.
Evolution, if we can see it. And that is like very, very important. And I think that the challenge here is not only to promote projects from these languages or cultures from like, let's say, the center of the digital humanities, but mostly inside these communities. I think that the real challenge is that is not just to use our academic eyes and promote projects inside the academy on these languages as linguistics or as philologists or anthropologists, but give the chance to these people to do these things with their own languages and cultures. So I think that in that sense, like DH is really helpful and really important and a central thing. So I
Thank you. And I mean, I only got to know the Petrolo Digital this morning, and I only edited after, after your talk, and I was really happy to get to know it.
I also have to say that.
There was, yeah.
Go for it. That I fully agree with that idea, and I also believe that it is quite easy to implement in language teaching. It's very easy to implement this type of projects, because I was lucky enough that I had a position for 6 months as a Catalan lecturer in University College Cork, and I could see the interest of students in doing something completely different in college, and what they were doing was basically reading in Catalan and just tagging some of so they were learning vocabulary, they were doing things that we normally do in a language class, but through a complete different method, and I think it's an opportunity that needs to be addressed. So thank you.
If you go to the European Research Council founding webpage, you can find the statistics about where the money goes. Where are the countries where the money goes to from the European Research Council? And the first place, with like 571 projects, is like UK. Second one is France. Third one is Germany. And from that on, it's like the curve is just really small. I don't know, Spain is like it's just, and other countries is just not, you don't see them in the graphic. My point is that also related with language, with English as a lingua franca, also for projects, or because how it's so difficult for countries like Poland and all these East countries to get through that?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know about the politics of the European Union. What I'm more interested in is that we, and Laurent asked us to do the same thing the other day, is to put our resources online, put our texts online, our publications. And another point I would like to add is publish also in your own language. Do not just publish in English, publish as well. Do 2 versions of your thoughts. Yeah, why not? You've got 2 publications, so what's wrong with it? Yeah. So you just have to do a bit more work and ask other people as well to make English accessible to non-English speaking countries, for example. So I think there's a lot we can do, and I think it's not just about waiting to get all this big money. Yeah, I think we can do quite a lot ourselves. And when I see this project, for example, or people just writing their own languages, I mean, my examples, I can't bring them up now, are all these dialects. I've got these wonderful examples of Friulian language pages. They're all in Friulian. This community developed their own multilingual dictionaries, their parsers, and I don't know what. Yeah? They talk about their history in Friulian. They are creating language resources without knowing about it. Perhaps they don't even know that they have a value, I don't know. But their pages are in 3 languages. So communities are doing a lot of things about that. They collect their cultural heritage and they put it on the web. They transcribe languages which have never been written before. It's all happening, and it's a wonderful study ground for linguists, actually, because you can see how norms are being formed, how ideas are being transcribed. So I think that should also be a very important field inside digital humanities, perhaps, to see how actually communities take on technology. What do they do with it? And if you remember well, the Clarin, Sebastian, when he would talk to us, he showed us a picture of communities where he went as a young researcher and collected linguistic material, and the picture he showed us was the community using the technology themselves to do their own research. So I think all these are are very positive signs of how small cultures and communities can also be really empowered to look about their own cultural heritage and their identity, their future, and everything else. And we should help or support the creation of a conception like this. I don't want to impose things on other people. I mean, this would be wrong. I mean, we've done that so many times now. But create a conception of what can be done and why it might be okay and things like that, and bind it up with teaching.
Yep.
I was wondering if all these resources that are created, is it more focused on the preservation? I'm thinking, or do you think that it can also keep this language alive? I mean, I'm thinking of all these dialects, and if it's just about like preserve or also, because this is very interesting, I think.
I mean, I've done a study on this development in northern Italian dialects in the mountains. You can find all sorts of things. I mean, some create museums of the old times. So I think this also shows they don't see their language to be really alive. It belongs to their grandfathers and grandparents, grandmothers. But this, for example, I don't know what their politics are, honestly. I mean, I haven't analyzed it. But it's a newspaper, and it's not only a newspaper, so it's being written and produced now, every day, and things like that. They have, for example, also this multilingual dictionary, and so behind there is a living community, and this is living work. Yeah? So you find all sorts of it. I think one has to analyze it carefully, what is actually happening. Yeah.
One of the things I've been wondering, I've been very really impressed and delighted about the growth of, sort of, if you like, larger language digital humanities communities. So obviously HDH, DHD, Humanistica, and so on. And this is clearly very positive development, but I'm also aware that they often, if you will, kind of combine, I suppose, identity communities with linguistic communities, and those two things don't necessarily clearly overlap. And I wonder, and I don't know, I don't want to put HDH here particularly on the spot, but there, inevitably that's going to raise really interesting questions about, to what extent should or does HDH represent Catalan communities linguistically and community, or Basque, and we could think of other examples, obviously in Germany or Italy and France. So this is not a specific, but how do we negotiate that inevitable tension between these groups? We want those language communities. We want the support that they can provide, and at the same time, we don't want a new age of digital humanities colonialism, where everything is assumed to be
or nationalism, or
nationalism, to be fall into these clear subsets. Are these thoughts or discussions which HDH, for example, has had, or DHD?
I mean, I'm worrying about this question as well, yeah, because obviously I don't want to have nationalism, nothing of these sort of things. It should be all on a different level, where it's more about like cultural heritage, but also present culture and things like that, and value it, but do not use it to kill other people or things like something like that. Yeah, but I think it depends very much also on how we as scholars or educated people go about it, and what we allow our students to think, or how we talk critically about it. I do a lot of studies with my students about these sort of wikis, web pages and things like that in other languages, and try to just make them conscious what is happening and what to think about it, or can you think something about it, things like that. So create a consciousness first of all, but obviously be critical about it. I don't have an answer, I'm sorry.
On that note, we will finish now. We're going to have a very quick rest break for anybody who wants to do that, and then we'll ask if everyone could be back here by 5 past. and then I'm going to hand it over to Elizabeth, who's going to chair our final speaker. Thanks a lot.